The Trilogy Podcast with Vin and Scott. 3 movies, 2 men, 1 podcast.
I got love for my homies who be rolling with me. Play no games, cause ain't nobody playing with me. I got love.
Vin, you got to remember the 3 rules of podcasting. First rule, all deals are final.
That reminds me, I want to thank you, Scott, so much for changing your plan so that we could record this podcast on this day. It's really helpful.
Well, I guess I did break that rule, but the other rules are very important. Rule number 2, no names.
I'm Vin, and as always, you are Scott, and we are the hosts of this podcast.
No, I just said don't. All right. But rule number 3 is very, very important. You never open the package.
And I would like to open up, as always, by saying that we are the Trilogy Podcast, the only podcast in the universe devoted strictly to trilogies. No reboots, no straight to cable. We're bringing you facts, debate, trivia, and more. To hell with the movie. If they made 4, isn't that right, Scott?
I feel like you intentionally ignored all more rules on purpose.
Okay, Scott, can you please?
Sorry about that.
Really, honestly.
I had a little something caught in my throat.
Enough already. All right. We're here, and I think it's important that you should tell the world exactly what trilogy we're doing today.
We are doing the Transporter trilogy.
That was a pretty good impression, Scott. I really like how you...
Thank you.
Yeah, you really gave us the Frank Martin character in all his glory.
Yeah.
All right, so folks, we are back with you, of course, and we are celebrating Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And so we picked a trilogy, I think, that went along with the spirit of Thanksgiving, right? On Thanksgiving, people are always using different modes of transportation to go to see different family members.
Right.
And this particular trilogy, it really is devoted to different modes of transportation.
It's
right?
all about getting from point A to point B.
Exactly. The transporter has trains, planes, various cars.
Automobiles.
Exactly. You're on bikes. People are running. So we thought it fit as much as any episode could fit with the current holiday. So yeah, let's not waste any more time and jump right into our trilogy bot, who's going to tell us exactly what kind of trilogy this is. Trilogy bot, we can't wait for your offensive and disgusting description.
The Transporter is an army of one trilogy. A lone character, against the world, whose adventures we follow from film to film. Now, bugger off, knobheads. Damn bloody plonkers.
What does that mean exactly?
You know, it's funny because Trilogy Bot himself has an English accent, so it's perfect when he insults us with respect to this trilogy because the whole, trilogy takes place in Europe pretty much.
Right.
Or with a European character, so.
It's a little too upper class, though, I think.
You're right. I mean, because Jason Statham is very...
He's northern.
Yeah, he's very gruff.
Yeah.
So, but he's right. Okay, Trilogy Bot is right. This is definitely an army of one trilogy. One guy's adventures as he takes on the world. This is actually the 3rd trilogy that we've ever done that is a pure action trilogy. Okay?
Right.
Mission in Action is one of the others, as is Taken. Okay, so this is our 3rd pure action trilogy. Our other army of one trilogies, such as RoboCop, all the superhero trilogies, the Robert Langdon trilogy, even Shaft, Mad Max, there's some kind of pretension there where they're trying to say something else. There's some depth to the trilogy where they're trying to do more. This is one of the few trilogies where it's just an action trilogy. So, he joins the company of Liam Neeson and Chuck Norris as being unapologetic in the fact that this is just about violence, action, excitement.
I was reminded very much of the Jackie Chan movies a little bit watching these.
Without question.
Like the extensive fight choreography, the sort of sense of humor that comes along with some of the fighting.
The Hong Kong fighting style.
Right.
That's funny. I wrote that down and I figured the only difference is that when Jackie Chan is doing a fight in this Hong Kong style, he always seems to be sort of surprised by what's happening around him. It's taking him by surprise. Oh my God, I'm using this weapon. I'm doing this. And he's kind of laughing at himself.
Yeah.
Jason Statham is like, I meant to do this the entire time.
Yeah.
So there's
I'm very resourceful.
yeah, he's taking it seriously.
Yeah.
Jackie's like, okay, I'm just using what's kind of around, and hey, holy shit, it
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah.
So, why don't you just jump right into the plots?
Oh, the plots.
Scott? Yeah.
Simplicity is key. And on that note, I would like to say,
I once met a man named Scott. I really loved him a lot, 'cause he told me about all the plots. And then I gave him everything that I got. Why, Scott's plots?
I'm not sure that goes along with the tone of these films, but
I was going for, those European songs that end the movies.
it's very aggressive.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, these are Scott's plots, and of course, if you've never listened before, I'll give you a quick recap. What I do here is I recap the movies with no character names, basic details, that sort of thing, just so in case you have seen the movies, but it's been a while, we'll catch you up. And if you've never seen the movies and you don't care and you just want to hear us talk about them, you'll be all caught up as well. So, we of course start with the first movie of the trilogy, as we often do, and that first movie is called The Transporter.
2002.
In France, a British former special ops soldier is now taking jobs as a driver for illegal purposes. After a job as a getaway driver for some bank robbers, a French cop visits the driver suspecting his involvement, but with no evidence.
You know, I like that they give the rules of the transporter. And the rules are basically never change the deal, no names, never look in the package.
Yeah.
Yet, he breaks the rules
Constantly.
in every single movie.
Every one of these movies is about the 2 or 3 times that the transporter has fucked up.
Yeah.
So really, our basis of understanding is only the transporter doing the wrong thing.
You're right.
And breaking his own rules.
I mean, you're exactly
because I'm sure
right.
there's 900 other times he's done a job where everything went smoothly and
Sure.
as planned, and they're just not as interesting.
Listen, in the first movie, he stumbles across an issue because he decides to check in the package. In the
Right.
second one, he chooses to go after the bad guys because he
has an attachment.
has attachment to the child. And the third one, he's forced to go along with it through
Right.
circumstances. He's got the bracelet on, so there's always sort of an entanglement with the plot, which puts him in the position where he has to break his rules.
Right. But it's also like a great example of this is why we don't break the rules.
Yeah, I mean, if we stick to the rules, he drives the suitcase from point A to point B, and there's no movie. You're
And
like,
it'd be over, yeah.
yeah, my car worked great. It was no problem.
Time to get it washed. Take care of the car that'll take care of you.
Nah, but will it? Later, the driver is hired to transport an undisclosed package in his trunk. But while changing a flat tire, discovers the package is a young woman tied up and gagged. The driver, against his better judgment, decides to give the young woman a drink and allow her to use the bathroom, at which time the young woman unsuccessfully tries to escape, attracting the attention of 2 police officers. The driver knocks out the cops and sticks them in the trunk with the young woman.
These movies are a commercial for cars. Don't kid yourself.
Sure.
All right. In the first one, it's BMW. The second 2, it's Audi.
Much like a James Bond film, if
Yeah.
you will. And not to mention the extensive product placement for Orangina in the first movie.
They love it in Europe.
Yeah.
We hate it in America. We're like, you drink this and you're like, this tastes like shit. What is this?
I feel like it was like around in a big way for maybe a year
Yeah.
in America. And we were like, no, nobody likes this.
It's for people that are like, you know what? Orange juice isn't good enough. I need tangerine juice. What?
As an American, I'll take a Sunny Delight over that any day.
And you shouldn't, because Sunny Delight is also terrible.
It's just sugar.
Just stick with orange juice.
We don't like fruit in America.
I mean, but they have whole vending machines in Europe where they're like, Orangina, Orangina. Hey, fuck yourself. I don't want any Orangina.
How does that bottle not shatter in a vending machine? The driver successfully drops off the package to an American who offers the driver another job transporting a briefcase. The driver takes the job, but when he returns to the car after visiting a rest stop, the car explodes, killing the 2 cops in the trunk.
It's not clear.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I believe the French cop later tells him.
Right.
He stops to get more Orangina for the cops.
Oh, okay.
And that's why he stops and goes back and gets more and then ends up saving his own life and not getting in the car.
Better grab another Orangina before I hit the road.
So
Like,
he
I didn't even think,
Okay, so
you know.
so he drops off the girl, but keeps the cops in the car, and that's when it explodes.
Right.
And I'm not sure why he didn't just leave them in the street, but okay, throw them in the back of the car.
Right.
I guess.
You think you would have taken care of that before you stopped at the rest stop for an Orangina.
No
but
question about it.
The driver then walks back to the house where he delivered the young woman and proceeds to beat the hell out of everyone there. The driver escapes in a stolen car only to find the young woman in the back seat, and he brings her home. The next day, the French cop visits the driver to ask about his exploded car, which the driver claims was stolen. After the French cop leaves, the driver's house is hit with a barrage of missiles, and the driver and the young woman escape through an underwater passageway to a safe house where they bang.
You've got basically a classic action hero. He's not going to say very much.
Right.
Okay? A cop who knows but doesn't really know.
Yeah, he's more after the truth, this
Right.
cop, you know?
And then, of course, you've got the female lead who's more annoying than anything else. She's just a hindrance.
Yeah.
Okay? Her whole main function is to be an impediment and constantly rescued by the hero during
Right.
the movie with a sex scene that's completely out of place
Right,
and
yeah.
completely inappropriate.
And really makes no sense.
It makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, why would you have sex during this period of time?
Yeah.
In addition to that, you have the crime boss that is more than happy to kill any of his allies or Confederates just so they won't live to tell the tale,
Right.
which is so action movie.
Where the other guys are like, maybe I should quit. I don't know. I'll go back to my waitering job.
So these are just huge action movie tropes, and I mean they're displayed in force in this movie.
The driver tries to tell the young woman to let the attackers believe they are dead and start over. But when the young woman informs the driver that the American is trafficking 400 Chinese people in a shipping container, including her family members, the driver promises to help the young woman.
And this is where the plot just becomes utterly befuddling. You have no idea what a shipping container, human trafficking, where did this come from?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just sort of half-assedly, ham-handedly added on at the end of the movie, and it's ridiculous.
Right.
And this actress is really ridiculous. She can't really speak English. She can't deliver a line. And so her whole selling of this concept where she cares about human trafficking just reads as bullshit.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about, man?
Yeah.
You're against your father. At this point, we have no idea, again, why she's even been kidnapped.
Right. Why did he need to transport her from point A to point B?
Did the father
if-
just want her out of the way so that you wouldn't interfere with his human trafficking deal? It's unclear.
Yeah.
No one knows what your motivation is, and no one knows what your father's relationship to you is. We don't know why you're doing this. Like, they tack a plot on at the end. Listen, we know from action movies that a kidnapped daughter is a common contrivance that goes along with action movies. Just go along with it. Why even bother to tack this on at the end?
Rush Hour, right?
Yeah,
First
Rush Hour,
Rush Hour.
Commando, Taken.
Over the top.
I don't think Over the Top applies.
All right.
Although Stallone does crash his truck into his house and he's like, I'm his father, I belong. Then he arm wrestles
I need to
for
teach him how to arm wrestle.
I'm just saying Over the Top is not a great example of this.
Okay.
But it is a great example of this whole 80s idea where kids are at the root of the conflict and whatever means necessary to save my child.
Well, I mean, because I think with a lot of those examples, you know, they're kind of like a hard-nosed action hero.
Yeah.
They're like, they don't care about anybody and they're just about getting the job done. But they do care about like women and children.
Right.
The driver and the young woman go to confront the American and discover the young woman's father is also involved in human trafficking.
Yeah.
And the driver is knocked out. The French cop arrives and the American and the young woman's father tell him that the driver kidnapped the young woman and the driver is arrested. But when the French cop realizes that the driver is innocent, he helps him escape by pretending to be the driver's hostage.
It's like, well, why not just tell everyone what's really going on?
Right, yeah.
I mean, you're the inspector. Say to everyone, he's not at fault. There's a human trafficking operation going on.
Yeah.
Why do all this?
Because it also seems like he's like, well, it seems like a lot of work on my end. And you could just do it so much faster.
I would rather be making an omelet at this point. So
Yeah.
just put the gun to my head. We walk out together.
You are far more effective than us, so just get it done, okay? The driver tracks the traffickers to a dock, but is unable to stop the trucks full of Chinese people. The driver then steals a car that eventually breaks down and then commandeers a biplane and parachutes on top of the traffickers' convoy of trucks. The driver kills the American and stops the trucks, but is caught by the young woman's father, who walks him to a cliff's edge intending to shoot him when the young woman arrives and shoots her father dead.
This guy is able to dispatch just hundreds of henchmen left and right, but suddenly is confronted with this old man who can barely hold the gun, and now he needs the woman to step in and save the day. He can't possibly solve the problem. This is very action hero. You hear the gunshot, the hero looks at his chest, oh, well, I've been shot, I don't feel it. And then the bad guy drops, and behind the bad guy is the person that really shot him. And in this case, it's the guy's daughter.
Right.
Fucking come on.
Yeah.
She can't hold a gun. There's no reason to think she would be able to kill her father. I mean,
You would think they would have done like the bait and switch where like you think she's going to shoot him and then he ends up getting the drop on him so she didn't have to. I
it's
feel like that's pretty typical in action movies too.
you're right.
And then she bursts into tears and like the first thing she says is like, he was, evil, but he was also my father.
Yeah,
like,
there's all
we understand the conflict.
Yeah.
The French cop arrives and the Chinese people are saved.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I mean, because I was worried about the Chinese people that I hadn't cared about or even were aware existed up until the last 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
And then they open up the container and it's like they're walking out and they're like, oh, light. We've been inside this shipping container the entire time. Well, we didn't know about it.
I honestly was expecting like half of them to have eaten the other half.
Yeah, or-
basically. Because I mean, how long have they been in that fucking container? We haven't seen them get fed or
You're eating your foot,
sunlight or
whatever. Of all of the plots of all three of these films, this is by far the worst of the plots.
Yeah.
Because it could have just been a straight ahead actioner, and instead they tack on this sort of morally heavy idea with refugees at the end, expecting us to care about it, and we just don't.
The plot's just a vehicle for the action.
So Scott, rock into Transporter 2.
Let's transport ourselves to the second movie, which is called Transporter 2.
2005.
In Miami, the driver has taken a temporary job as a chauffeur for a wealthy couple whose relationship is on the rocks, and their young son, who the driver has taken a shine to.
Classic.
The wealthy wife, who clearly wants the driver's D, asks the driver to drive their son to a doctor's appointment over the weekend before he is meant to pick up the vacationing French cop at the airport.
She tries to seduce him, and he rejects her, and she says, "Thanks for respecting me. It's what I needed most." What? You needed to be rejected most by the man you tried to seduce?
Right.
That doesn't ring true at all.
Yeah.
I wasn't respecting you. I'm not interested.
Why'd you come here?
Yeah.
In all of these movies, Jason Statham is like, I've got other things to do. I don't have time to fuck you. In all three movies, he's like, enough already. Our lives are on the line.
Ladies, please.
Stop trying to fuck me.
Yeah.
There are other things to worry about. He's trying to deny one of the hardcore characteristics of all classic action movies.
Right.
And he can't deny it.
He's like, I gotta stay focused.
Yeah.
Stop.
In the midst of the most dangerous points of these people's lives, a fucking has to occur.
Yeah.
It just has to.
Yeah. When the driver and the son arrive at the doctor's office, a group of mercenaries led by a scantily clad psychotic woman try to kidnap the son, and the driver fights his way out and escapes with the son.
Great scene. Great scene.
Good scene.
A bit confusing because they kill the doctor, I guess, and Statham really, it takes him a long time. He's a little slow on the uptake. He looks down at the door and blood is pouring out.
There's jam coming out from under that door.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So, then he's got to make, he's got to create a missile.
When the driver and the son arrive at the wealthy family's house, the driver receives a phone call from the Italian bad guy, who tells him they have a sniper aiming at the son, forcing the driver to let the scantily clad psychotic woman into the car, and he drives her and the son to the Italian bad guy's warehouse. The driver is told to leave, but realizes the Italian bad guy's crew has attached a bomb to his car, and he drives away and detaches the bomb from his car in an insane way seconds before detonation.
I mean, it is preposterous.
It's the most ridiculous part of the movie.
I mean,
and it's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Let's pretend he knows exactly where the bomb is at the bottom of the car.
Right.
Somehow, he forces the car into a barrel roll,
Yeah.
and in doing so, dislodges the bomb.
And then completes the barrel roll and lands perfectly.
And lands perfectly. The bomb is gone.
Yeah. But that's what I don't understand is like he hits it right into that like crane hook and knocks and dislodges the bomb. But like very easily, that could have like hooked into his undercarriage and like
course.
ripped everything out of his car.
There's
and then
always a
How are you
ramp.
going to drive the rest of the movie?
Scott, there's always a ramp where he needs it to be during all
Right.
these movies, whether it's to flip the car, to spin the car, to turn the car over. It's there and he
Right.
knows how to use it immediately.
Right. It's like, did you do this in the war? I don't understand. How often
I mean,
were you driving
If
in
you
special
know there's
ops?
a bomb under the car, how about just drive a little bit away, get out and run away? Why are you even risking this?
Right. Or,
So-
leap out of the car and let it go into like the ocean or something.
And meanwhile, we have no idea why they've even bothered to let him go so that the bomb can explode. The bad guys are like, all right, go ahead. You can leave now.
Right.
All right. Well, what were you going to do? You were going to just blow him up right there, alerting everyone to where you're located. Why do that?
It seems like a busy dock over there, too.
Seriously, shoot him in the head and then
Yeah.
don't let anyone know.
The kidnappers return the son after receiving the ransom. But unbeknownst to the wealthy family, the son has been injected with a contagious, deadly virus in hopes of infecting his politician father and other politicians at a conference.
This is completely confusing to me because they say that the virus has some sort of 24-hour shelf life where it dissipates into the air and just goes away. So the father is infected with it. The mother is infected with it. They spread it along at the conference. The black guy that he's with gets it in like 1 second and he's on his knees and he's like, I'm sick all of a sudden.
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
just with the guy for fucking 1 minute.
Right.
So how are you sick all of a sudden?
Right.
Later on, the villain's like, I need an antidote. Well, what do you need an antidote for? It'll go inert in 24 hours. So what is this about? What is this plan about?
Right. I didn't quite understand that. I couldn't understand if they were saying that like within 24 hours it like kills the host. Maybe that's why they're getting sick so quickly. But it did sound like they were saying like, no, it like disappears after 24 hours.
Yes, what I'm
Like,
saying.
Okay, so what is this fucking War of the Worlds? Like at the end, the aliens all get a cold and then die? Like what?
That's why his whole idea of like injecting the antidote into himself isn't justified by anything logical.
Right.
And these people are getting.
And any doctor would have probably told him, like, this will probably kill you. You can't take this much of anything into
Yeah.
your bloodstream. You need room for blood.
Matthew Modine gets it. It takes him 24 hours to take effect. He gets to the conference and people are dropping like flies over there.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Why do all these movies depend upon kidnapping someone, which is to force them to do something else?
Right, right.
Stop kidnapping people. Just do the thing.
The driver, now suspected to be part of the kidnapping, tracks down a scientist working for the Italian bad guy and pretends to inject him with the virus, and then follows him back to a lab where they are keeping the antidote.
They really make very little effort in any of these movies to cover their tracks.
Right.
He's able to immediately get on the case and he's there in 1 second.
I mean, this Italian guy is definitely not doing like a psych evaluation on any of his crew members. So
Right.
like shit can go wrong all over the place.
Yeah.
It's very sloppy.
Yep.
Another scientist throws the antidote out the window and the driver is able to only save one vial. The driver then sneaks into the wealthy family's house and tells the wealthy wife what's happening and gives the son the antidote as his father heads to the conference, infecting everyone.
I've got the antidote. All I care about is the sun. Fuck everybody else.
Right.
Well,
Like, okay, but you're telling this to the mother who is
Yeah.
almost certainly going to die.
and that's Matthew Modine, for God's sake. Respect Matthew Modine.
Oh, by the way, Matthew Modine, trilogy superstar. He's in The Dark Knight Rises. Meanwhile, I mean, all these people are getting sick immediately interacting with him, but fucking Statham interacts with the kid and the mother, and at no point coughs or
problems.
never has any
Yep.
illness.
Modine's delivering a speech while he's coughing and sputtering.
The driver arrives at the Italian bad guy's house, where the Italian bad guy reveals he is working for a drug cartel and has injected himself with the rest of the antidote. Unable to kill the Italian bad guy without losing the antidote, the driver fights the scantily clad psychotic woman, killing her while the Italian bad guy escapes. The driver then drives after the Italian bad guy and boards his private jet just as it's about to take off. The driver and the Italian bad guy fight, and the pilot is killed during the scuffle, sending the plane crashing into the ocean, where the driver paralyzes the Italian bad guy and escapes from the sinking plane.
Obviously, we're completely away from reality where a plane going at top speed when crashing into the ocean doesn't break apart,
Right.
doesn't explode.
You guys ever seen an Air Force One where
I mean,
that thing
for
is like
God's sake.
ass over fucking tea kettle?
How often do you hear that when a plane from, that's crashing from that distance, when it hits the water, it's like hitting cement?
Yeah.
Everyone will die.
I fell on this soft water.
They have a great fight in the plane up until that point, but once they hit the water, it's kind of anticlimactic because he sort of paralyzes him with like a neck snap,
Yeah.
so that he can keep the antidote alive.
Yeah. Which was sort of unclear too, right?
It
He
was
kind of like
unclear.
chops him in the neck, and you see the guy go, "Oh!" Not that he should have been like, "Oh, I've just paralyzed you," like
Yeah.
or anything. But I mean, I guess it's also weird because it's an underwater fight, and he
Yeah.
paralyzes him underwater, so he just floats and stays in the exact position he was in. Whereas if you were on land and he paralyzed him, he would have like, collapsed,
Right.
and you would have been like, "Okay, he's paralyzed."
You're right. It's unclear.
The antidote is recovered, and the family is happy without the driver, who drops off the French cop at the airport and takes another job.
I feel like the ending of this movie is by far the coolest of the three endings, where he looks in on the hospital and he's like, you know what, I shouldn't be involved in this. This is a family thing. And then he comes outside and he's like, I'm ready to take another job.
Yeah.
Pretty badass.
Yeah.
Really thought that was the best ending of the three.
More true to the character. Like after watching two of his movies, you're like, well, the third movie is going to have nothing to do with the previous two movies.
Of course.
It can't possibly, because
It's
that's just not his style. He
Right.
goes on to a different job. He's a different fucking day, you know?
Right. We just get a sense at the end of each movie that he's moving on to the next film. I'm a businessman. I've got to
Right.
go on to more business.
I don't belong here. I'm a loner.
Yeah, it's cool. I thought it was a really great ending.
I'm a loner, Dottie. A rebel.
Are you quoting Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
Yes.
I respect that. All right, Scott, take it home.
All right. So we're going to wrap this baby up with Transporter 3.
2008.
Back in France, the driver and the French cop are fishing when the French cop gets a call about another driver speeding past Border Patrol into France. Later, the other driver crashes into the driver's house and the driver calls an ambulance, who picks up the other driver.
The expression on his face when the guy crashes into his house is like, another big fucking problem.
Just another day for me.
He's like, you know what? I keep having house after house and they keep getting destroyed. What the fuck is going on here?
Leave my house and my car alone.
Enough. Just stop outside. I'll come out and meet you.
After the ambulance leaves, the driver discovers a young Russian woman in the back seat, who informs him that she and the other driver are wearing bracelets that will explode if they get too far from the car.
So with this, you have a combination of a bunch of different movies, okay? You have a little Running Man action where if you get too far away, your neck collar explodes
Right.
and you blow up.
I thought of that.
Yep, and you also have a little Die Hard with a Vengeance where two liquids combine and create an explosion as
Right,
well.
right,
So they're
right.
using a bunch of action tropes together to create this premise.
Funny enough, it did remind me of another Jason Statham movie, Crank.
Tell me about that.
Now, Crank, basically, I believe the setup is that he is given some sort of poison
Okay.
that's going to slow his heart rate down and kill him.
Oh, that's right. And if it goes up above a certain level or something,
Well, he has to keep his heart rate up, basically, the whole movie. So he
Oh,
has to
okay.
do, like, all this badass shit that will keep his heart pumping.
Right. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
I think this is a cool element to this third movie where, the stakes are raised because he has to be near his car, and the idea that he's the transporter takes
Right.
on a certain degree of extra weight.
The driver tries to stop the ambulance, which promptly explodes, and the driver is captured and brought to an evil CEO who places an exploding bracelet on the driver and forces him to deliver a package and the young Russian woman to Budapest. The driver takes a detour to see his mechanic friend in hopes that he can remove the bracelet. But the evil CEO's henchmen arrive, and the mechanic is unsuccessful in deactivating the explosive device. The evil CEO decides to fire the driver, and one of his men briefly steals back the car and the young Russian woman before the driver is able to quickly recover them. The evil CEO agrees to allow the driver to finish the job, but the driver realizes the package is empty and that the young Russian woman is the package, and he bangs her.
I mean, that's the premise of all three movies, that the package is always a person.
And you're not supposed to open the package.
You're not supposed to.
and
you're
put your dick into it.
You're not supposed to bang it.
Right.
Suddenly she takes a pill and she's like, I'm ready to have sex with you. And it's like, you were an asshole for this entire movie. All of
Yeah.
a sudden, you got a personality. You're
Gonna make for some good hate fucking.
It's absolutely a hate fuck because he doesn't want to go along with the fuck.
No.
And she's like, do a striptease for me. And he's like, what are you, fucking crazy?
Yeah.
He's like, all right, I'll take off my shirt, exposing my perfectly ripped body
Yeah.
to the world. She then becomes his love interest for the entire rest of the film.
Of course. He puts his penis inside anyone and they become his love interest.
What happened to the-
Regardless of feelings or
What happened to the Asian girl from the first movie?
Right. She killed her father for you.
Yeah.
Where is she now?
She's gone.
The same way with James Bond. He's got like, like, oh, I'm with this girl, and it's like they're going to be together forever. And the next movie, he's like, who? I don't know who you're talking
It's
about.
funny you should say James Bond because I wrote down in one of my notes for one of these that this is kind of an anti-Bond character, meaning
Yeah, he's
the gruff version of Bond.
sort
Bond
of a
is-
dirty Bond.
Right.
You know?
He's all, Bond is all about English sophistication and coolness and smoothness, whereas this is like low-class British hooliganism.
Yeah.
Get what you want through ass kickery.
Right. But at the same time, he is very like anal about things too.
Yeah.
So it's very prim and proper. Things
You're
need to be in
right.
their proper place, but he's not sitting around sipping martinis.
He's not
shit.
sitting, and when he expresses himself to anyone, it's always like in the most, sparse terms. He's like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
let's do it. Come
Yeah.
on.
He's a man of action.
Yeah.
You know?
He's exactly right, Scott. He's a man of action as opposed to a man of extravagances.
Right. Post coitus, the young Russian woman reveals she was kidnapped to force her father, who is the Ukrainian Environmental Agency's minister, to sign an agreement allowing the evil CEO to bring toxic chemicals into the country.
And it's the first time we even understand what's happening in the movie at this point.
Why do they do that? I feel like every single movie they hold back some information. In the second movie, we don't find out what the reason that anybody's doing this is for until like the very end of the movie too. When
You're
he's
right.
like, I work for the cartel and they're getting rid of the people who are against drugs. And you're like, why couldn't you have just told us that right at the beginning?
Uh-huh.
Like, you don't tell them, tell us though.
Yeah.
Later, the driver is surrounded by the evil CEO's men who take back the young Russian woman, remove her bracelet, and shoot up the driver's car. The driver drives off a bridge to escape and saves himself by using the air from the car's tires to float the car to the surface.
The stakes where he has to stay close to the car are badass in this movie.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
they add so much to this film that he has to be near the car. He's the transporter. He loves his car anyway.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense.
And that's for that scene, especially that he's got to figure out a way to get the car above surface too,
Not just
is a
himself.
great complication.
Right. Can't just save himself. Has to save himself with the car.
I was the one
Awesome.
few times watching this movie that I was like, what is he going to do?
Yeah.
Like,
It was
'cause
cool.
how the fuck? Because, like, if you swim away from that, you're going to blow up. That's what I love. He calls him and he's like, we'll be there in 10 minutes. And, like, it seems like he's just like, okay, so you're saying I have to figure this shit out for myself? Okay, yeah,
Again,
I will.
one of these insane underwater air pockets where there's time with which to make phone calls.
Right,
You're
yeah.
underwater. How does the phone work?
It's true.
I can't make my phone work fucking,
Yeah.
in the elevator.
Right.
How are you able to do this underwater?
Go into a subway station, forget about it. The evil CEO boards a train and calls the environmental agency minister and tells him he has 15 minutes to sign. Meanwhile, the French cop rescues the driver in his car, and the driver chases the train, jumping the car on top of the train.
Much as I love the concept that he uses the air in the tires to float the car up to the surface, so
It was
that
pretty cool.
It's really cool. Okay, but how is that car able to drive after that? I mean, okay, maybe we could assume that somehow because Audis are great, the car is able to be, reactivated and
Yeah.
can still drive. But what about the air in the tires? Don't you have to
You're
fill
right,
all the
yeah,
tires with air again?
Yeah.
You've taken all the air out of the tires. I mean, 10 minutes later, he's like, all right, the car works again. Let me follow the train.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, you just missed the scene where the pit crew came up and just...
I mean, really?
The driver fights his way through the train, but can't get to the evil CEO because he is too far from the car. The driver returns to his car, and as the evil CEO disconnects the train cars, the driver jumps the car into the train car and subdues the evil CEO, straps the bracelet to his wrist, sends the car off the train, blowing up the evil CEO.
Awesome.
This is the only issue I had with this, is he ties him to the car,
To the wheel.
and then the car starts to go out, and then he immediately falls off the car. And I'm like, okay, well, why'd you do that then? Isn't the point that you want him to be separate from the car?
Yeah, so why tie? Yeah,
And then
right.
it seems like the movie goes, oh, right, and then unties him real quick.
But I think the idea is that Statham is basically like, oh, you have to be in the same predicament that I was in. Now
Right.
this car is attached to you all of a sudden.
When the Ukrainian Environmental Agency minister hears his daughter is safe, he tears up the contracts, and the cargo ship of toxic chemicals is raided. Later, the driver, the French cop, and the young Russian women all go fishing. Since we've been talking about Taken 2 and Luc Besson's, connection with Taken, these movies end the same way, where there's always just a bright, really happy moment.
Yeah, at the end.
Things always kind of work out.
Now, that's the European way, Scott.
It's the same way with Taken. They're always eating ice cream at the end of the fucking movie.
Because in Europe, no matter how bad things are, there's always time to, eat a tart. You know, there's always time to.
You know, you're a tart.
I feel like the people of Europe have a more positive view on the world, even when facing imminent danger, than we as Americans do. These are the people that survived World War I and II.
Keep calm and carry on.
Seriously,
right?
I mean, I think
stiff upper lip.
They have a different way of looking at the world, whether it be naive or not. I get why these movies have a tendency to go in that direction.
Yeah.
All right, so those are the plots, my friend.
That's them.
I think it's best that we move on to what we like to call
Vinformation. Billy?
right off the bat, Scott. The Transporter, Transporter 2, and Transporter 3 were written by trilogy superstars. Robert Mark Kamen, one of the writers of the 3 films, was also the writer for The Karate Kid and for Taken, which we've profiled in our podcast.
Right.
All right, so he's a trilogy superstar. And Luc Besson.
Luc Besson.
All right, he was one of the screenwriters for Taken. I guess he partnered up with Robert Mark Kamen for that film, and he himself is also a trilogy superstar. So we've got some hardcore trilogy guys putting together these films.
Yeah.
And look, when we talk about Luc Besson, it's very much in this European style, in this European chase style.
Yeah.
You know, the classic streets of Europe, these tiny little alleyways, these cobblestone alleyways where, you know, cars don't have many opportunities to escape. So you really have to use ingenuity, right?
Yeah. Some cities with history.
Classic architecture. We see the European cities of old. So it's very much its own feel. I think of Ronin with De Niro. And I mean, for Christ's sake, I was thinking of National Lampoon's European Vacation. I mean, it's the same idea.
Jason Statham starring in a remake of Vacation.
I would love to see that.
I've got to get to Wally World.
Sorry, folks, we're closed for 2 weeks to clean and repair America's favorite family fun park.
What do you mean the park's closed?
Sorry.
The Transporter was actually inspired by an internet series called The Hire, which was about a similar, you know, driver starring Clive Owen, but was really just like a BMW, a series of short films for the BMW company. It was promotional films.
Oh, yes, I remember these.
Yep. So that's what it was inspired by.
Wow.
Okay. The movie was a modest success. The first movie, it was made for $20 million. It made $25 million in the United States and $45 million worldwide. So it was a modest success, nothing crazy. And like all of these films, it received mixed reviews. It seems even to this day, and this happened in the 80s and the 90s as well, reviewers don't seem to comprehend the point of action movies. They want to appraise them with respect to what real movies are trying to accomplish, and they don't realize that this is just escapism.
Well, you know, the only thing I would say is that, you know, if you're not pushing for these movies to be better, you know, what's the point of making them, sort of thing? Where it's like, if you just praised every action movie, even if it was dumb as fuck, but it had great action, they're going to get worse. Because it seems like you're lowering the bar. We're saying that the bar only needs to hit this point, and it doesn't need. No one's expecting these movies
Scott,
to be good.
You're not trying. You don't need to change the plot, and you don't need to change the characters. You're changing the action. So the action of the '80s was gun action. So Stallone would use a machine gun and mow down a bunch of people.
Right.
In Commando, you know, Schwarzenegger would chop off an arm. In this movie, the guy's using complex martial arts skills, and so the action has to change. And I think that's the evolution, really.
Find out what you are good at and stick with it. And if you're going to be a lead, I say be more of a person that does what comes naturally. Don't try to be a Shakespearean actor when you speak like me.
This movie engendered some comparisons to Vin Diesel.
You know, Jason Statham was doing like karate his whole life.
Yeah,
like,
oh yeah.
He's a martial artist. Right. You know, whereas Vin Diesel, I'm like, he's just a tough looking guy.
And there's a difference between an Englishman fighting versus an American fighting.
Yeah.
There just is.
Yeah.
Okay, Englishmen are are tough motherfuckers.
Not like the upper crust British, but you know, like your Bob Hoskins,
right? The
like
down and
Cockney,
dirty
northern, like, you know.
What I'm looking for is someone who can contribute to what England has given to the world: culture, sophistication, genius. A little bit more than an hot dog. Know what I mean?
The director was Louis Leterrier, and he was also director of The Hulk in the Marvel Universe.
Oh, the one with Edward Norton.
Yeah. Another great movie, in my opinion. One
better than the other one, which was directed by fucking Ang Lee.
Oh, no doubt
Oscar
about it.
winner.
So then we get to the Transporter 2. Again, it received mixed reviews. This movie did better. All of these movies made more money as time went on. I think people appreciated the Transporter films as time went on. This one was made for 32, did 43 in this country, and made $85 million worldwide. The only little minor thing I have about this movie is that the director of this film, Lettieri, because he directed the first two films,
Right.
he suggested that this was the first gay action hero in history.
Uh-huh.
Because in that one scene in the second movie, the wife tries to seduce him, and he kind of rebuffs her, and he says, it's because of who I am.
Right.
I think most people, when watching the scene, would think that he says that not because he's gay, but because he's professional and he doesn't mix business with pleasure.
Right.
I think
right.
that's pretty obvious.
Yeah. I watched these first two movies before reading that, and I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. I was like, but how? That doesn't make sense. But then when you watch these movies and you think about it, there's a ton of examples how they're like subtly hinting at that he's probably gay.
Yeah, but he fucked the woman in the first movie.
Yeah, but he was hesitant to do that.
But he fucked the woman in the third movie.
He was hesitant to do that too.
But I don't know. A gay guy doesn't
Oh,
have
gay
sex
guys fuck women.
Maybe they do.
They do. Just because you're gay doesn't mean you can't find a woman attractive.
I think more than anything else, maybe.
Just because I'm straight doesn't mean I can't find a man attractive.
Oh,
I don't have to have sex with him, but I can think he's an attractive guy.
Scott, you're saying too much. What I'm trying to say
Like
is,
Vin, I think you're an attractive guy.
I'm not gonna disagree with you. I know I'm an attractive guy, but what I'm saying is, more than anything
He says
else,
as he looks into a mirror.
I think that Statham in these films is more asexual than anything else. The point of his character is not his sexuality so much as the task that he has to complete.
Right.
To the point where fucking this guy, this guy Lettieri, he backtracked after the third movie came out when, Statham fucked the girl and stayed with her, and it kind of seemed like they had an enduring relationship after the movie. He watched that, and then he rewatched the first two movies that he directed, and he said, nah, maybe he's not so gay.
But even in the third movie, when he's like saying he doesn't want to, she's like, oh, I get it. You're gay. And I don't know if that is like,
no, that I feel like that
supposed
was
to be like a gag on the fact that
exactly. I
in the
think that
first
was
two
that was a
movies?
direct commentary on the fact that it was suggested in the second movie that he was gay, and she's like, "Oh, you're a gay," and he's like, "I'm not gay.
yeah, like no,
I'm just not interested.
I
in
have
you."
morals.
You
Well,
know?
I will say in my detailed notes for these, I do have some instances or scenes or moments that I think may strengthen the gay argument.
Well, maybe you can sell it to me. We'll see.
Well, as I go along, I'll point them out.
You're the gay.
Nope, I am not the gay.
Transporter 3, Scott. It was directed by a different director.
Olivier Megaton.
He was the director for Taken 2 and 3. So he's a trilogy superstar.
Ah.
An interesting thing about this film is that Luc Besson spotted the female lead, Natalia Rudakova, just on the street in New York. She was going into her job at a hair salon. Just, made her the lead of this movie. Not an actress.
Wow.
She's appeared in nothing else.
Yeah.
Just made her the lead of the movie.
Well, she's not very good.
But she's not as horrible as professional actors that I've seen.
Now,
so
is she American or is she Russian?
her last name makes you think that she's Russian.
Right.
But it does seem like her accent is wonky
Sucks.
in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This movie got mixed reviews. Some people saying that the camera work was better. It was more focused with a different director and wasn't so shaky. Other people saying that it was as equally confusing with respect to point of view and that kind of thing.
Right.
Reviewers also said that it was, they noted the fact that there was more driving in this movie than hand-to-hand combat, which is definitely noticeable.
Yeah.
Okay. It was by far the most successful financially. At this point, people had bought into the Transporter trilogy. We're looking at a $40 million budget, $31 million made in the United States, but $77 million made globally. So it was a $100 million movie.
Wow.
Be aware, though, that there are other iterations of the Transporter universe. You have a TV series that existed from 2012 to 2014. Did you see any of that, Scott?
No.
Okay. And there was a reboot in 2015 starring Ed Skrein, who was the bad guy from Deadpool. He played the character of Ajax.
Hey, is Ajax your actual name? Because it sounds suspiciously made up. What is it really? Kevin? Bruce? Scott? Mitch? The Rickster? Is it Basil Fawlty?
Now, joke away. One thing that never survives this place is a sense of humor.
There are only two actors, Scotty, that appeared in all three of these films. Obviously, the first one is Jason Statham.
Yes.
Okay. He actually grew up with Vinnie Jones in the UK.
Well, they're both in, I believe, both of their first movie is Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Exactly right.
They're both in the British version of The Longest Yard, The Mean Machine, where it's them playing soccer in prison.
Jason Statham was also in movies like Snatch, the Italian Job remake, Crank, The Bank Job, when they remade the Death Race movie.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, I fucking love that remake.
He has a cameo as the character of Frank in Collateral with Tom Cruise. He hands off Tom Cruise a briefcase, and that's supposed to be the same character.
Supposed to be the transporter?
Yeah.
You okay? Yeah, I'm fine, mate. Don't worry about it. Enjoy LA.
And of course, he's a trilogy superstar because he appears in all of the Expendable movies, which to this point, there's, it's a trilogy. There may be a fourth one down the road, but it's still on our list. It's a trilogy. And he's, of all the Expendables, the most recent Expendable, meaning he's the action star that is the most current of that group of badasses.
Right.
He was also a voice in Romeo and Juliet, which I know you hated when we discussed James McAvoy's involvement. We did the Unbreakable trilogy.
Yes, he's the voice of Tybalt.
You wouldn't attack an unarmed gnome, would ya?
No. Tybalt can't be with us anymore.
He was in some latter Fast and Furious films, I think obviously capitalizing on his driving from this trilogy.
That's right. They did the spin-off one with him and The Rock.
The Rock.
Right? Hobbs and...
Dick Ball,
something
whatever.
And Hobbs.
And,
Calvin and Hobbs. There
right.
you go.
Wait. Close enough.
No, I'm not working with this guy. I've been there, done that.
Hey, the minute he gets involved, you can kiss goodbye to any finesse because She-Hulk here only knows how to smash.
So, motherfucker is no joke. Jason Statham, when it comes to action films, is, right at the top of the list nowadays.
Yeah.
And the only other character that was in all three films was the guy that played Tarcone, his French inspector friend. It was played by an actor named Francois Berliand. If you look at his filmography, it's just a bunch of French films that we don't know of or have seen. But when they did the French version of The Office, he played the Michael Scott character. He played the David Brent character. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's give an example of that right now.
Are you speaking to me? Are you speaking to me? You're speaking to me? It's you speaking to me? Al Pacino.
De Niro, no?
All right, Scotty. Are you ready to break down these films, their little foibles and funny moments? The Transporter.
I was wondering if you wouldn't mind transporting something for me. No questions asked.
Why not?
In this first chase where he's driving these bank robbers around, right? There's a point where the cops kind of have him cornered. He's revving the car up and he's sitting, he's spinning in a circle and the cops are just standing there with their guns out. I'm like, shoot the tires. Shoot his fucking tires, and then it's over. And then you've got him. Which I guess is, that's a comment on French police.
That's an example, and we see an example of it in each of the three films, of one crazy stunt that could never exist in reality. So in that chase, he jumps his car onto the back of a car carrier, lands perfectly, and he just keeps driving along. We're completely ignoring the laws of momentum and physics for that to happen.
Right.
Yeah. So again, there's one of those in
flying in the face of the laws of man.
Yeah, I mean, there's one of those in every single movie.
Yeah,
and I appreciate that. But that first, scene is great because he's laying down the fucking rules to these bank robbers, and hey, got to kill one of the bank robbers. We knew this was going to happen.
Yeah,
we knew the bank robber was going to kill one of the guys and push him out of the car.
Right.
We knew it.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
Yeah,
it begins this trend that we see in all three movies where a gun is placed against Statham's head, and he's like, unflinching, not scared. And he's like, no, I've just got information to tell you. I'm not scared.
Yeah.
And just act upon it as you will.
Right.
And they do.
Yeah.
So it's badass. It's a great way to open up this trilogy.
I will say, though, I mean, he tells them, he's like, no, we can't possibly have one more guy in the car. And they're like, why? And they're like, because, it's going to offset how fast we can go, and we might need to refuel while we're going. I'm like, but then the chase lasts about 20 minutes.
Yeah, well.
Right? And you're like, you would have to refuel during a 20-minute drive because there's one extra guy in the car?
He's a professional.
Really?
He's a professional, Scott.
Really?
3 men, 254 kilos. That was the deal.
The first fight scene we see, I just think it's kind of funny. I wrote down, knocks a few guys out with a tablecloth. Sometimes the props that he uses are not dangerous props. Like he's using a shirt and a tablecloth, and people are going right down. And you're like, well, I mean, it could be a heavy tablecloth.
Yeah.
Or,
maybe he's got some salt shakers in that tablecloth. You don't know.
I mean, he hits two guys with a tablecloth and they go right the fuck down.
Yeah.
I mean, good martial arts and everything, but
it's a tablecloth.
It's tablecloth.
Yeah. He's just gonna come snapping towels at people and shit.
In the first two films, the guys come at him with a series of axes, and you wonder where they got these axes from. Why are these good weapons to use?
Right. Well, you think about it for about a second, and then the axe fight starts, and you forget all about it. Because you're like, what a badass axe fight this
You're
is.
exactly right. You're exactly right.
Where'd they get axes from? Oh, shit, yes.
Oh, shit. They're fighting with axes.
Yeah.
And he's really easily countermanding their axe moves.
Yeah.
If you're a guard, why would that be your weapon? An axe.
Right.
This movie doesn't even show where they got the axe. In the second movie, at least, you're like, okay, they should have taken the axe off the wall.
And pulled them
Here,
out.
they just happen to have axes.
Yeah.
And my axe.
He discovers the girl in the trunk.
Yeah.
And decides to be nice to her and lets her drink some Orangina.
Cuts a hole in her mouth tape.
Yeah.
It just looks weird.
But then he lets her go to the bathroom and he unties her completely and then puts a very loose rope around her neck and lets her walk into the forest by himself and then is surprised when he pulls it back and she's not on the other end of it.
Yeah.
Because her hands are free. You dumbass. Because she's just going to take it off. What did you think was going to happen? It's one thing if you're holding it taut against her and if she tries to move, she's going to strangle and get choked to death. Maybe if you weren't so icky about women and, you could just follow her out there.
Then we get to the whole ridiculous movement with the girl where she's just annoying and then they have sex for no particular reason and then she's making him breakfast in the morning. What is happening
She's
here?
suddenly in love with him.
Yeah. Obviously, English is not her first language.
Sure.
So she's speaking her lines phonetically, and she can't do it. They sound ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's not her fault.
It seems like Luc Besson just casts women that he wants to bang.
I get a sense of that.
know?
I really do. He's finding people on the street. He's like, you would be good in my next movie. Have you ever wanted to be in a movie?
Who answers that question? No.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we meet her father for the first time, and he looks like Liza Minnelli's ex-husband, David Guest. He's had so much plastic surgery. He's got a burn victim nose. It's barely there. He looks ridiculous.
I shit you not. I literally wrote this note. I thought you were going, we had very close notes about this. I wrote, her father is of indeterminate sex. And then I wrote, Liza Minnelli as an Asian man.
Thank you.
Wow! I've arrived! This is how I should have been feeling my whole life. This is it.
Oh, we have this scene where Wall Street, Matt Schultz, goes to see the surviving guy from when he attacks the house or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells him, no, he's alive. He came back and kicked the shit out of us and everything. And then he's like, yeah, don't worry. And first of all, he's doing that weird thing where he's touching the guy's lips.
Yeah.
He's wiping his mouth for him. And then, of course, he shoves the fucking gag down his throat and he strangles him.
Of course.
Because that's coming.
Action movie.
But then I think it's hilarious because he kills the guy. The heart monitor is going crazy because he just flatlined and you killed him. And he very slowly switches the heart rate monitor to the guy next to him where it's boop, boop. And I'm like, maybe you should have done that before you murdered him?
Yeah.
No nurse hears that alarm and goes, oh, shit. Oh, it stopped. No big deal.
It's fine.
No, they would still come in and check on the guy and be like, and he's dead. He's got a fucking scarf down his throat.
Nurses don't just go by
It looks like someone's been touching his lips a lot.
in all the action scenes. His kicking is just really great. He's kicking people from all angles. His kicks are phenomenal.
Yeah. Because he's actually doing the fighting, it makes a huge difference in an action movie.
When he gets to the warehouse and he's fighting them with the oil slick, that whole thing with the oil slick,
Yeah.
badass, man.
Yeah, it's cool, but at the same time, I was like, why does every one of these movies have to get him shirtless and then grease him up?
Yeah, he's really
immediately?
greasy. But I mean, he uses it to his advantage in the fight, so it makes perfect sense.
Right.
Like,
He puts those things on his feet so he's not sliding around
Right.
anymore. Yeah, it's pretty
over the course of 50 years, we've seen a million fights in a million different movies. So if you can present to me a fight that's unique in any kind of a way,
right,
I buy it, man.
Yeah, that bus fight scene
Yeah.
that happens right after the oil.
Right.
He kicks all those guys' asses, and then right at the end, he requests a stop. He
Yeah.
presses the button, and I was like, that's kind of weird. Why didn't you just have like a typical like action movie line there? It seems like a perfect place for him to be like, excuse me, lads, this is my stop.
This is
you
my
know, like
stop,
it
yeah.
gets off, and instead he presses the button.
Then I managed to open up the door and I kicked him out the door, with my foot, at the next stop.
You kept making all the stops?
Well, people kept ringing the bell.
We see this in all the films. Statham has to chase down a thing that he realistically can't ever chase down. So in this case, he's got to chase down the trucks and he's got to use a crop duster.
Dude, he's running faster than the plane.
Yeah. And somehow commandeers the plane to get to the trucks.
Yeah.
So the action finale in this film is the truck fight, which is very much in the vein of Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
To the point where he's underneath the truck making moves. He kicks the guy out the side of the truck. Like
Right.
That's what it's inspired by. There's no doubt about it.
Meet me at Omar's. Be ready for me. I'm going after that truck. Oh. I don't know. I'm making this up as I go.
I do want to say there's the part where he's walking around and he sees the storage containers and he pulls out a stethoscope and he's putting it up to the thing to listen to see if there's people inside. I'm like, it's 400 people in a storage container. I think you'd be able to hear it with the naked ear.
Maybe just knock on the side. Someone will
Right.
knock back.
Knock 3 times on the ceiling if you want me. Twice on the pipe. If the answer is no.
Your gun, please.
Oh, my sweetness.
Suddenly, he's just at the beach. And again, he's dispatched all these villains. And, well, you got an old Asian man with plastic surgery that's got you.
Yeah, and she shoots him. And by the way, her dad has the wateriest blood I've ever seen. That was a really shitty practical effect
You're
that they
right.
used. I'm like, you can see the water separating from the blood.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. Nobody.
Oh, I do have one gay example.
Please.
At one point, I believe he's underwater and he kisses that guy to take his breath. And
Oh, he does that in the third movie, too.
yeah, you'd rather kiss a guy than die. You know?
He's getting his breath, Scott.
This magic moment.
Little pervert! Oh man, he's a deep shit.
When they get the refugees out of the storage container, I just think it's funny that they seem to run out of like blankets, so like they wrap half of them up in like yoga mats and whatever's available. Like
An old newspaper.
Someone help these people. Which brings us now, Scott, to Transporter 2.
Yeah,
I'm looking for a transporter.
I'm listening.
I do like they kind of set it up because I mean the first movie he was helping out at a bank heist, right?
Right.
He pulled up and picked those guys up, so they obviously are setting us up for that. And then the alarm goes off, and then kids come out, and you're like, what? He's picking up a kid at a school, and I'm like, they're obviously being like, it's different this time,
Right.
Like,
It's almost
I
like
enjoyed that.
They're spoofing themselves almost a little bit.
Right.
When he's home, he orders a pizza. Do you remember this part?
Yes, of course I remember this part.
It is the worst pizza order
I've ever
heard. The pizza is no cheese, extra olives, and extra anchovies.
Yeah.
Is there anything worse than that?
It's a maddening fucking part of the movie because first of all,
it's barely
the guy on the phone should be like, ew, gross. And be like, well, you want us to take the cheese off the pizza? Like, what?
Couldn't be a worse order for pizza.
Yeah. It's a river of sauce filled with fish and olives. And that's what you want?
That's not even pizza. Why
That's
would
not
you
pizza.
want that?
Yeah. And also, he has just called them to find out where the hell his pizza is because he ordered it a while ago. And he's literally repeating the order to him and telling him how much it's going to cost. I'm like, shouldn't you have done this part already?
I mean, really?
Or did just Statham just call pizza places he's never called before and go, where's my pizza? Oh, and could you burn it? Burn it real good.
And you know what? On your way, throw it on the floor.
Yeah. Could the driver sit on it the entire drive?
I mean, does that look like the best pizza? Trust me, I can tell you, it doesn't taste good.
The whole doctor's office assault, he tells the kid, he's like, you'll be fine. And they get there and it's like, maybe you won't be fine.
Yeah, I think I lied to you. You're
no
not going to be
one
fine.
that's familiar to you is here, and everyone's acting shady.
Yeah, you've got that Russian doctor who's like, yeah, sure, come in. We help you out and give you a shot. And you're like, what is going on?
Shots are good.
Yeah.
Come inside. I am, let me look at name tag. Doctor.
Well, also, it's like, it's funny because you're like, well, sure. I mean, he's the transporter. He's not going to be fooled by this. But would anybody? Wouldn't if the mother had brought him, she'd be like, something's not right.
Unfortunately, your doctor was called away on emergency. The nurse said he had the flu. That was the emergency. He came down with flu very quickly.
The assassin woman that comes in.
Very hot.
She's got the dual Uzis going on. She's like a femme fatale in the vein of like the Aeon Flux character from like MTV's Liquid Television. That long, lithe woman with the two guns and just kind of badass.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I thought of when I saw
And she's
her.
like in lingerie constantly.
Constantly.
And high heels.
Needlessly.
Yeah. I dig the smoking hot psycho character.
Yeah, listen.
You know?
I mean, that's truly a femme
I've
fatale.
clearly got a type.
A rich nigga, 8-figure, that's my type. That's my type, nigga, that's my type. 8-inch bagel, that's the pipe. That bitch, I'ma ride a dick all night.
We get to, I believe it's when he's driving with her after, he's been forced to drive away with her and the kid. And they're like flying off of buildings into that construction site.
Oh,
and
they jump from building to building.
Yeah.
And that's reminiscent of the first film when he jumps his car onto the car carrier, something that could never really happen.
Right.
They have one of those in all three movies.
Particularly the special effects look awful in that moment. They look really bad. And then it's immediately followed by one of the worst things I've ever seen. She's like, looks like we lost him. He's like, think again. And then like the helicopter comes and she literally like shoots it once and it explodes into a fireball. And she's like, yeah, thought about it. And now I'm done. Like, I was like,
I mean, honestly, Scott, I think I bent over to take a note on the jump through to the building. I looked up and I was like, the helicopter exploded? Like it was that
right.
fast.
Yeah. It's ridiculously fast.
Get to the chopper!
And then we get Keith David in this movie.
Trilogy superstar. Of course, we've talked about Keith David in the past when we did the Missing in Action trilogy. He was in Missing in Action, but he's a big-time trilogy superstar. Platoon, Barbershop, where he plays Lester Wallace, the antagonist. He's also in the Chronicles of Riddick. And of course, he's also in The Thing.
Ah, that's right.
So
yeah.
I mean, he's a top-notch trilogy superstar.
Just keep your pecker hard and your powder dry, and the world will turn.
You've got the French cop.
I got it right here. Right
and
at this point.
He's hanging out at his house making madeleines.
Yeah.
Which, of course, they made in the first movie. And then the police show up and they ask him who he is. And he's like, I'm the cook.
He infiltrates an entire police station where he has no business being and is somehow able to, access their computers in 1 second and get information he shouldn't be able to get.
If you're ever trying to break out of a police station, just make them creme brulee.
Yeah, I guess so. He's like, haven't you ever had someone cook for you before?
Hot damn, he's going to make us food.
This guy's good.
I have no more questions for you in this interrogation.
It's really unclear to me, Scott, how he was able to get the villain's name and location because he calls the French guy in the cop station and the French guy's like, I have nothing. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Oh, I didn't click next on the page.
Yeah,
Look.
exactly. Oh, and we get around this scene, another action movie characteristic. Did you happen to notice when the guy was out of bullets, he throws his gun at Jason Statham?
Yeah.
Come on.
Classic.
I mean, that's classic. To the point where we saw it in The Office, for God's sake. Threat Level Midnight when Jim throws his gun at Michael Scott.
Threat Level Midnight makes all the girlies feel all right. From Madonna to Madeleine Albright. Threat Level Midnight. It's a threat, a level threat. He's the greatest hockey star I ever seen yet.
And of course, then you get the jet ski scene where he's pursuing on the jet ski. So we get another mode of conveyance in this film.
Right.
And we get a new one kind of in every film, right?
Yeah.
So in the first one, it's buses. This time it's jet skis. And in the third one, it's going to be a train.
Right.
We get different ways to travel, which I think
transport, if
right.
you will.
I will. And I think that's to the movie's credit.
I don't want to harp on this gay thing.
You keep harping on it.
Too much more.
All right.
But especially because this is the second one where the director specifically said he put in little hints when they interrogate the French cop, they ask him like, how do you know him? And he's like, well, we have a relationship. And like, it's just the way he says it is very, I mean, he's visiting him for a weekend. It seems like,
I think it's a friendship.
They could just be friends. Sure. But I will say, I'll put another point here. When he is trying to get the antidote and he's jumping around and he slides and he grabs that antidote just before it gets crushed by the car, as he stands up, a rainbow appears.
Come on, Scott.
I'm just saying, when you're looking for it, it's there.
Whoa, that's a full rainbow. Double rainbow. Oh my God. It's a double rainbow all the way.
And you've got a great fight with the water hose. I
Yes,
love how he
yes.
kicks ass with the hose, and then in running the water, it changes the effect of what the hose does. So it
Right.
constricts in a different way and
Kind of like
fucks
traps
people
them
up.
all where they are.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Great action fighting there.
Yeah, I loved him just throwing up the head of it and like kicking it into
Kicking
guys
it into
and
people,
shit.
and then
Yeah.
it wraps around other people, and when the water courses through it, it suffocates them.
Yeah,
Really
yeah.
slick.
Yeah.
And then we get, and again, this is the final hideout. We get to the fight with the girl at the end.
You mean the 4-second fight with
the
the girl?
You're like, all right, finally, he's gonna fucking have a battle with this tall bitch.
He essentially accidentally kills her because like he like kicks her and then he like the camera doesn't follow her and he kind of turned away, and when he turns around, it's kind of like, oh, well, I guess I killed her.
Why is there a spiked wall in the decor of the house?
You know what? I read it as art of some sort.
It seems too easy to beat her. Like, she seems too formidable a character and too strong through the course of the movie that 3 kicks and this fight is over. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I accidentally impaled her on some spikes. But ultimately, the ending is cool. Okay, we already talked about the plane crash being unrealistic, but their fight within the plane with the zero gravity as it's going down.
It's pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
I will say, though, we have some wonky fucking lines leading up to this fight where he first walks into the plane and Jason Statham's like, I regret to inform you, your flight's been canceled. And the guy pulls out a gun and goes, I regret to inform you that you have been canceled. What? What are you talking about? And then directly after that, he's like, sit down, let's get to know each other. And he sits down like they're going to have a conversation. He's like, I think I know everything I need to know. And immediately starts fighting. I'm like, why did you sit down?
From the mightiest pharaoh to the lowliest peasant, who doesn't enjoy a good sit?
He goes to the hospital and he's watching the family, and they're playing that game they were playing earlier where, you give, it's like a riddle. You give clues and you got to guess the thing, which, by the way, everybody sucks at this game.
Of course.
No one is good at
The
it.
kid can't come up with any of
The
these
kid
answers.
is brutal, and he's like, let's play the game again. And we're like, why? You suck at it. But the kid is giving the clues, and the parents are, a snake? A worm? Could it be this? And he's in the little tiny fucking hospital window, just full face of, a potato.
Say potato, assholes.
Yeah, like he's like, it's potato. Say potato.
Parents are getting a little bit closer. The mom's like, a turnip. No,
Yeah.
say potato.
And then like cut back to the room, and they're all looking at him like, we heard you. Like,
it's just
you're
it's
2
just-
feet away from us through one pane of glass.
It's just
We heard you.
it's a ridiculous riddle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like a child's riddle.
And like, are we supposed to think Jason Statham is cool
Yeah.
because he just cracked this child's
Matthew
riddle?
Modine, weren't you a real genius in the movie Real Genius? How do you not know any of this?
Yeah.
You're making a fool of yourself, man.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Can I help you? Potato Man.
Where the hell have you been?
And so the last note I have. So earlier, he hijacks that Rastafarian guy's cab.
Yeah, that's right.
And at the end of all that, he gets to take that like yellow Lamborghini or whatever. And you see him sitting in the car just like, oh, it's okay, baby. I'm going to take care of you, bumbleclot, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you got a yellow Lamborghini now. You turned it into a cab?
Just make
Sell
it your own car.
and have money, and then don't drive a cab anymore.
Scott, that leads us to Transporter 3.
My boss said you're the man for the job.
I'm unavailable.
You have 10 seconds to change your mind.
I'll give you 5 seconds to remove your hand.
Scott, this is yet another trilogy that involves toxic waste. It's unbelievable how many trilogies we've dealt with that involve toxic waste in some respect, whether it be RoboCop, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Yeah.
the Karate Kid.
What? Don't bullshit me. What do you mean you can't dump it in Borneo? Who in Borneo knows what chloride sludge is? Just do it. Do it. Call me when it's dumped.
I tell you what, though, perhaps my most favorite fight in any of the films was the piano bar fight in the beginning of this one. Because I love the idea that Statham is saying to someone that's ready to fight him, like, are you sure you want to do this? It's almost like Jack Reacher. If you're not going to win, are you sure you want to do this? And then he uses the piano. You know he's going to, so he's slamming people into the piano. You get the piano sound effect.
That moment you're talking about also reminds me of Captain America, the Winter Soldier, within the elevator. And he's like,
definitely.
Before we start, does anybody want to get out?
Yeah.
Like,
I think at the time when we talked about Winter Soldier, I mentioned Jack Reacher too. The idea that you're warning the people around you, like, are you sure you want to bring this upon yourself?
I'm just going to say that anytime I get into an argument, just so people are like, he must be a badass.
Yeah, man, I'm ready to do it too.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm like, you sure you want to do this? Like, yeah, I'm sure I want to do this. Like, all right, but not in my face, okay? Like,
Remember, you wanted this.
Another action characteristic that they use in this movie, I mean, I noticed it in the other two movies too. 10 guys are fighting him. They take turns attacking him. No one ever thinks that maybe they can neutralize him by all attacking at once. Instead, they kind of take turns approaching him, giving him the opportunity to dispatch them one after another.
Right.
And that is like action movie 101.
Right, yeah.
Like all of you just attack him at once.
But the fight choreography said I should wait.
Yeah,
Like,
right. I should wait a second and I should be stunned by the fact that he put down 3 of my friends. Now I'm going to get involved.
Yeah.
Get involved immediately.
And now I've been hit with a tablecloth.
Yeah, and now I've been hit with a shirt.
Yeah.
Now
Ow. That button hit me right in the eye.
Why am I approaching this guy with a sword instead of a gun? What am I doing here?
Yeah. There's a line when they're in the car when he's driving the Russian girl. And, you know, he's trying to get her to talk, and she's, like, refusing to talk to him and say anything to him. At one point, she's like, you think I'm stupid? He's like, I never said you were stupid. In my head, of course, I finished the line with, I mean, I thought it, but I never said it.
And everyone thinks you're stupid. 2/3 of the movie, you're doing nothing but acting stupid.
Yeah.
Then suddenly you're just acting like an asshole.
Yeah.
You're an idiot. Stop. Just don't do anything.
They're also in the car at one point, and he's talking about, like, getting food or something. He's like, yeah, maybe have some sausage. And she's like, I don't like sausage. And that's weird. Like, well, this is going to be a really boring drive for me, let me tell you.
Meanwhile, if I want the best meal possible, I'm sorry. I'm not going to the Ukraine for it. Dessert? Your appetizer? Your drink? What?
Yeah.
Don't give me the whole meal. What are we talking about
Yeah.
here? What kind of fish do you have here? What kind of drink? Is the drink chilled? Will you shut up already?
Hope you like borscht.
I don't like any of it.
I know a wonderful place just up coast from here, where they make fish stew. Incredible. They use tomatoes and onions, a little amount of wild lavender.
What kind of wine?
Pink, from south.
Chilled.
Of course chilled.
And for dessert.
Shut up!
And meanwhile, the bad guy, I couldn't believe it. The bad guy, years before, uses a Donald Trump reference.
Yeah.
He says, in the words of a great American Donald Trump,
You're fired. Yeah.
What?
It was like, ugh, ew.
Ugh.
Hey, look, you claim to be like me. The difference is I work hard. You've been lazy. You've been nothing but trouble. You're fired.
I must say, though, that, again, the gimmick where he has to stay close to the car, you get that bike scene where he's running and then he grabs the bike. Motherfucker is like grinding rails and shit. He's jumping the bike onto stuff.
Yeah.
He can ride. He can drive anything.
He's a BMXer, this
I
guy.
mean, seriously, that was an awesome scene. You have the Stooges playing in the background. That's an awesome scene.
Yeah, yeah.
And the people in the factory where he's just driving through are like, oh my God, a guy's coming through with a bike.
Yeah, he's just going through like Ferris Bueller.
Yeah.
What's for dinner? Smells great. Gotta go.
It is just like Ferris Bueller.
No, don't get up. Hey, it smells delicious. Dinner's ready.
What?
So in every one of these movies, he loses his shirt in some way or another.
This is the most aggressive one, though.
Well, because in this one, he just rips it off.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, let's fucking do this, and like rips his shirt
I mean,
off.
one piece after another. He's like, jacket, fine, don't need it. Shirt, fine, I'll use it as a weapon. Every possible clothing.
But she comes up to it, she's like, you fight good, but you tie bad, and like fixes his tie and like tightens it. And I was waiting for like, oh, I'll keep it loose so I can use it as a weapon.
Exactly.
It can come off at any second.
I mean, I'm no expert in ties, but it looked pretty good to me.
Yeah, it looked
Like,
fine.
Fuck you, I tie a tie very fucking well.
I wear a tie every fucking day.
How often do you wear a fucking tie? What do you know, bitch?
I bet you got a lot of nice ties.
What do you mean?
You want to tie me up with some of your ties? side?
Oh, he has that fight where he fights the big guy. Right after it's done, he throws a rose.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, where did that rose come from? And why are you so like, oh, sorry about that. Like to that guy, I'm like, you know how many other guys you've killed and maimed and done all this stuff to? And
You just
this is
dropped
the guy?
the fucking, like a car onto two guys, crushing them to death.
Right.
This guy gets a rose?
Right. I'm like, where did that rose come from? Why are there roses in this garage?
There's a rose in this garage. Got to use it for something.
Yeah. Or you could just leave it where it was and then leave.
In your memory, my friend. You're a good opponent.
Pour one out for my homies.
Wait, what?
Flores, flores para los muertos, los muertos, los muertos.
They get onto that bridge. Yeah. Okay, this is the big showdown. And you know he's going to drive that car off the bridge.
Right.
I mean, you know he's going to. How many times does the villain have to say, kill him? And it's never successful.
Never.
Like, it's in every single movie, they're like, I'll just take care of him.
Yeah.
Well, if it was that easy, he'd be dead by now. No one can just take care of him.
Well, because they always say kill him, and then they turn their back to the situation. Like, I'm not even going to look to make sure that you killed him.
Just fire
And then you're
into the
shocked.
car.
You're like, how is he not dead? Like, did you ever confirm that
Make
he
an
was
effort,
dead?
man.
Like,
Make an effort.
But I was waiting for, like, when he drove off the bridge. It looked so accidental to me. Like, oh, shit, I meant to put it in reverse. Oh, fuck.
Let him drive backwards. Let him drive sideways. I don't care. Just get me there.
The train stuff, it's awesome. It's unrealistic and nonsensical, but it's really awesome.
Yeah.
Again, that's your third crazy stunt that couldn't possibly exist. You know, he lands a car onto the top of a train and then later drives it into a train.
Well, but that's the thing about him. He lands the car on the train, right? And I get, like, he has to have the car with him because otherwise he'll die.
Awesome
right?
concept.
But he lands it on the train and then gets off and starts walking down the train. I'm like, what if this train went around a turn and the car just went fucking flying off the top? You would just explode and have no idea. What, you'd be like, oh. And I do like the setup that he's like chasing him down the train. And he has to stop because he's like, fuck, I'm too far from the car.
It's
like,
cool.
And I mean, they use it as a kind of interesting complication.
Could kill the bad guy. How is he going to kill this bad guy? Like, he's got to get back in the car, drive it into the train. It's clever. I mean, I bought it. And honestly, I felt like the action climax with the bad guy was by far the best of the three movies.
Right.
This one, it's this whole thing where it's like, now you're the fucking guy that's attached to the car.
Yeah.
And much as it's unrealistic the way we discussed,
right,
at least he kind of keeps the concept going, like now it's on you. What you tortured me with through the whole movie is on you now.
Maybe it was a thing of, because I often notice this, we talked about this with some of the superhero movies, particularly The Dark Knight or the Batman Begins at the end of the first one when he's like, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. And he leaves him on the train to die.
Yeah, good point.
Sort of thing where like maybe they wanted that kind of separation of like, yeah, he tied him to the car, but then he was able to get off and basically he ends up killing himself.
With Liam at the monorail, right?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right. Okay.
That kind of like, it's not on him, okay? He didn't murder that guy. He just inadvertently murdered that guy.
Yeah, these are PG-13 movies. He doesn't put a bullet to their head. He basically says, listen, you've created this set of circumstances and now you're going to suffer by it as well.
Right, exactly.
So, I mean, that's a clever way of looking at it, sure.
Yeah.
Let me do this my way so no one gets hurt.
Where's the fun in that?
Let's save the fun for later.
These were the Transporter movies.
They sure were.
Now, when you think about the Transporter and you think about Europe, there's only one thing that I think about, Scott.
Phil?
That's right, Phil. Phil, our...
Philippe Casal.
Philippe Casal. He is, of course, our field correspondent, and I'm really excited as to what he came up with.
Hey folks, Phil here, your field correspondent for the Trilogy Podcast. With the holidays upon us, we thought it would be a good time to give back. So today I'll be transporting a trunk full of turkey to a soup kitchen. The car's been packed for me and I am ready to roll. This year has been tough on a lot of people, and it's the least we can do. What the hell was that? It sounded like it was coming from the trunk. Maybe one of those frozen turkeys rolling around in there. Turkeys frighten me. Let's just give this a look. And... Ah! What the fuck? What? They're alive! They're pecking me! Jesus Christ, they're pecking the fucking shit out of me! Ah!
Oh, poor Phil.
Yeah.
Poor Phil. All right, Scott, let's give our final verdict on this trilogy. I'll start because I've made you start the last couple of ones, okay?
Okay.
For me, unbelievably, I'm going to call this a successful trilogy. I'm a sucker for action films growing up in the 80s and enjoying these kinds of films. And honestly, much as I may have had objections to certain plot elements in each of these, I think they satisfied what they were supposed to satisfy. And that's just a rollicking, fun experience watching asses get kicked and people getting fucked up. All right? I'm definitely going to call this a successful trilogy. And it was difficult for me to rank these because they're very close. They're very similar.
Yeah.
We're looking at three of like the same movie, right?
Basically.
I think for me, this is going to be a 3-2-1. I think that the first one had the best action, but the worst plot. I think the second one had equal action, but better plot. But I found myself most intrigued by the plot in this one and the mechanizations regarding the car and a great action climax that I felt like this was the most complete of the three films. So I'm going to go successful 3-2-1.
Well, I will say I believe they were successful. They came and did what they needed to do, which was give us a bunch of really cool action. They also helped, make Jason Statham an action star, which I think is a good thing. He's enjoyable. He's obviously got the skill.
Set the tone for his career.
For sure. So, I will call them successful. I'm going to differ a little bit on the order, and I think I'm going to go with, and it was pretty close, but I'm going to go with 2, 3, 1.
Okay.
And I mean, for two for me is like it's the right level of the ridiculous with taking itself seriously enough. I like the characters of the second one. The plot of it was just so nonsense to me that I was like,
it could go any order as far as I'm concerned.
Really?
The key is that we both appreciated these and call them successful, right? So
I mean, if we had Phil here and he called it a 1, 2, 3, we'd be like, okay,
fine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't argue.
Right. Yeah.
There's times when I'm ready to fight about the order with you about certain things, but this one, whatever. It is what it is.
They're all kind of the same.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the Trilogy Podcast. My name is Vin.
And I'm Scott.
And this is what we do, folks. We're bringing you trilogy after trilogy until we get to the end and there are no more trilogies left. So thank you for listening. As always, you can find us on Instagram at Trilogy Podcast, where I try and bring you just joke by joke, scene by scene, point by point, exactly what we talk about in the trilogy day to day. So please follow us on Instagram.
And I do the Twitter. There we'll do some fun polls about our current episode. We ask some fun questions. We want your opinion, so get on there and give us your take on things.
All right, Scott. So I'm going to clamp this bracelet on your wrist, and we're going to call it a night, right?
All right.
You just can't get any further from this apartment than you are. So.
You're saying I can't transport myself?
You can't. I need you to stay right here, right now, for our next episode.
That's a shame, because I'd really like to transport myself.
You can't transport anywhere.
To somewhere where I can eat a potato.
Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, come on!